So cognitive dissonance is living with, I think it's this, but I worry it's that. No, I think it's this, but I worry it's that. And it happens simultaneously. You actually have a duality that occurs in your head that lives both at the same time, which you're not supposed, we're not built to do this. And what happens when it starts to persist, we actually have neurological damage that occurs. It takes a toll on us physically and mentally, and we start to deteriorate as a result of the ongoing stress of it, which I find horrifying.
Okay.
Horrifying.
Did you ever experience any of this? I know you said we do naturally on things, for day to day, but did you ever experience it on an unhealthy or toxic level with your first marriage at all? Or was your real experience with cognitive dissonance with this guy?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. My first marriage wasn't the healthiest in every possible way, but he wasn't trying to gaslight me. He wasn't living a double life. He was a true blue kind of guy that if he said what he said, he meant it and he would do it. Where I had experienced it before was I had grown up in a home with a dysfunctional family and there was enormous amount of gaslighting going on. But did I actually have a lot of cognitive dissonance? No, I mean, as a kid, when you're not emotionally, like, romantically invested, you just sort of check out. So I'd
Right.
go to my room or do other things. I wouldn't hang around the family. But was there inconsistencies that I was living with? Oh, massive ones. I just had a better solution. So I don't feel like it took a huge toll on me. I see maybe my other siblings may not have fared as well, that I wasn't invested in the weirdness, so it wasn't as powerful to me. This to me was, I would say that maybe if we were on a scale of 1 to 10, like, you're like, "How bad is the pain? Like, gonna kill you, or is it nothing at all?" I would say maybe that was a 3 or a 4. This was definitely level 10, definitely level 10.
Yeah. I mean, like you were saying before, like it can bring up, it can manifest itself in you, even for the physical chronic illnesses.
Yeah,
It can manifest in such ways that you're just like, why do I not feel well? And I'm constantly aching, I'm constantly sick, or I constantly get the flu. And now I'm suffering from depression, anxiety. A lot of it comes from that because I remember we'd be downstairs, we'd be watching our shows, we have a snack. I would usually go to bed by around 10:30, which is actually pretty early for me. But I would also have a reason to get up at 5 a.m. So I was trying to get at least 7 hours of sleep and 6, 7 hours. So I'd go to bed and I'm like, are you come with me? No, I'm just gonna keep playing my Xbox. Okay. But then his phone would be lighting up and it would be like, and of course I'm thinking, okay, Regina, you know that as soon as you go upstairs, his second life is gonna start. This is his first life, and his double life is about to begin as soon as you turn your back and you go up those stairs.
yeah,
And it's almost a decision that you have to make peace with for a certain amount of time for a survival coping skill to just make it through the day. Okay, this is what's happening. I can't stop it. Is this an argument I even want to pick? Is this going to be, if I bring it up and start something now, do I have 3 hours of staying awake to just go through this emotional episode that's going to happen? Who's going to then witness it? What's that going to turn into? How's our, it's just, you think so quickly. And I don't even think that we realize we think all these things, but it goes down a rabbit hole where we're
right.
like thinking as a chess game 15 steps ahead for this cognitive dissonance of that. And I think that's a big part of it too. And when you know it, but I think that the part that hits people, at least my clients, those who I meet with as I'm validating their experiences, and my marriage and family therapist had no idea what I was talking about. Has your spouse ever cheated on you? No. Has he ever done this to you? No. Has he ever done this to you? Why are you my therapist right now? There's nothing that you can relate to me on. So we'd have to get a new one. But I think it's important where even just realizing and coming to terms with the fact that that wasn't who they were, that they weren't their authentic selves when you met them, and that they put on a show for, like you said, however long it takes until that mask just gets too heavy for them to wear, that they ultimately remove it. And when they remove it, and I wrote down a term that you had said earlier when we were talking about supplies, you had said they feel entitled to it. And part of me with my compassion wants to say they more than likely, I would say 90% of the time, because some people are just born that way, right? Some people are all born a certain way, but they came from a dysfunctional, abusive family as well. There's the two people that come out of it. There's those who learned those abusive behaviors and perpetuate that trauma. And then there's those who are almost the enablers, codependents as well. And then you have those that are like, I want nothing to do with it as well. Just, I want nothing. And they just clear their own path.
Right.
So for those that feel, when you say they feel entitled to that supply, I just, in my heart, I want to say it's like they truly are the most insecure people that come across as arrogant and self righteous and entitled. But they are begging for scraps of attention so much that they can't get it from one full person. So they have to have 10 people lined up to give them one line a week or two of this or a hi goodbye because they can't consistently get it from one person. And
Right.
I think that's sad to think about.
It
But
is.
if we really realized what went on behind that mask of theirs, you know, and it still doesn't make what they do right, but at least you're just like, okay, that's awful. And we are way better off to know who they are without that mask so that we can move on and
Right.
reaching a place of acceptance with that cognitive dissonance. So tell me a little bit about that webinar you have going on and kind of what, you know, the listeners or whoever wants to join, kind of what they would be learning about, kind of some takeaways, or if there's anything they'd be able to apply for themselves in their own experiences.
I have two huge things I need to jump back to. Can I jump back
Yeah,
first?
please, please.
Right. Okay. The one first thing I noticed was where I see people get stuck with a cognitive dissonance is when I was listening to your example, I thought, boy, she's way down the line. You actually were nearing ending the cognitive dissonance for you to be able to unpack all that and know that there was the duality happening. Where I see most people stuck that connect with me or reach out to me is they really believe who they met was the real person and this person's in trouble. And if they could just do the right things, could I tell them the magic answer to help heal this person? Because goodness knows they have so much potential. That's what I hear. And I believed it too. I thought he had so much potential as well. And I was in love with the potential. The problem is that they don't really know, and they certainly don't believe that who they met isn't real.
Right.
If you want to break the trauma bond, which is based on fear of loss and fear of rejection and fear of everything, you have to resolve the cognitive dissonance. You have to decide in your head who it is that you're really in a relationship with. And we will find everything that we want to convince us and explain away the inconsistencies. So we can't break it. We don't break it. We don't resolve it because we're explaining it away. We're justifying it.
Yep.
So I have this exercise I urge people to do, and that is to say, I believe this person is these qualities, and list the qualities, and then describe what it looks like in the world when you see those qualities. Then list what they do, and then just sit with that.
Yeah.
And it may take months, maybe years, I don't know, but you sit with that and see whether or not they line up, and you're going to find that they don't line up. And that will help you begin to resolve the cognitive dissonance. Second thing that you said, and this is what I just learned and it blew my mind, so I'm on the same page with where you're at, but I want to correct something that we've been kind of perpetuating as a social media population. Narcissistic personality disorders and personality disorders as a whole is not made, it's not nurtured, it's nature. 80% has been shown in twin studies and et cetera that this is a born traits. They are born traits. What it is, and this really I just finished a fantastic seminar with Dr. Gregory Lester, and he was part of the DSM-5 personality committee group.
Wow.
So he was involved with actually rethinking and coming together with the alternate model. There's a new model on, it's not criteria based, it's more based on 4 areas of assessment, which makes it simpler because then you don't have to memorize all 10 criterias because there's a lot like, oh, this is dependent, and this is histrionic, and this is, instead you look at these 4 functioning of areas and they say, is there defections, problems there? And then that's how you diagnose an individual. So it's a really fantastic, but it's still alternative. It's still not adopted yet, widespread. But 80% of them are born. And what it is that disorders are different from conditions. Conditions are things that happen to us that we find miserable. When you're depressed, you do not say, oh yeah, I'm depressed. I like this. This is just me. Like, no, this is not how I function. I can't get out of bed. I want to return to how I was. Same if any illness we have, it's a condition. Personality disorders is who we are. It'd be like telling someone who has an IQ of 80, now operate with you as if you have 130. Or if you're autistic, stop being autistic. It's a pervasive personality disorder that actually is a deficiency in traits. So if you think of a person's born with a variety of tools to engage with the world, like how comfortable you're meeting new people, are you able to resist impulses, or do you know how to handle intense emotions? These are tools that we're born with. People with personality disorders are deficient in too many essential ones, particularly having to do with empathy and self-reflection.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, and you're exactly right, they then end up having an incredible weakness. They approach every situation the same. Now, sometimes that works fantastic. If you're very narcissistic and you're in leadership, you're on. When you're taking charge, you look great. But when you're in another situation where you've got to take information with someone else and then submit to the orders, and that somehow you feel like that's an attack, then you're at your worst moment, you're going to do really, really bad. Whereas somebody who's got another skill of submissiveness and knows how to follow leadership and is cooperative, they're going to do well. But they don't have those built-in traits, so they don't do well. What they do because of the fragility, and this is what you're sensing, the weaknesses, is then they do all this defensive maneuvering in order to keep themselves up on top so that you don't discover and they don't reveal. And then that ends up causing all the problems, because the truth of the matter is, and here's the big paradox, the more you know about psychology, then the more you know this, and it's really heartbreaking. We connect with each other most intimately when we're the most vulnerable, and that especially includes our brokenness. We connect universally around our brokenness. So when they've even found in studies that when you stutter or slip or make an error, people think more highly of you because you made the error. They're going to think less of you if you give a perfect performance. But we don't know that. That's counterintuitive. And when you're already scared and there's something innately broken about you and you can't even see it yourself because your fear and shame is so high, you're certainly not going to reveal that to the public. So personality disorders' problem is not only is a rigidity and an inflexibility, but that it's pervasive need to always be in control to manage the weakness so that they never let you know that they're not like you.